Hi, welcome back to the Gambling Chef Kitchen, except today I am at my parents' house cooking a delicious Greek-inspired recipe, which is shrimp with feta cheese. It's something that I grew up eating that I love. It's delicious and tomatoey and creamy from the cheese, and I'm gonna show you how to make that, and we're gonna get started with peeling the shrimp, so let's look at that. Okay, so to peel the shrimp, this shrimp is minimal effort. This is the kind that comes split down the back. So the vein's already been taken out of it, and just the shell is left. So normally if the vein has not been taken out of the back and it's not split, then you'd pull the legs off first, and then you'd work your way under one of these shell sections and you'd pull the shell off. This is easy because it's already done, so you really can just peel it off quite easily. And then I try to go to the end of the tail, and then when I get down to the tail, I just pull gently. This one didn't work for me, but that's fine because that's going to happen to you too. I try to keep the tail intact. There's some that in here that I did that and managed to do a better job. We'll do one more together. So again, this is split down the back, so I'm just grabbing the shell. I'm pulling it off, and then when I get to this bottom segment here, we'll see if I can do a better job because it has a harder time if you don't loosen the shell around this tail segment. I hate shrimp where they leave the tail on it. It's not easy to eat. So there we go. I did a better job. I think I've lost one little flipper. So that's how you do that. If these weren't split down the back, you'd want to run a knife down these under cold water, take the vein out that's in the back of the shrimp, and then you'd be good to go. So I'm going to show you next how to prepare the peeled seeded tomatoes. Okay, so what I've done with these are Roma tomatoes, the oval shaped tomatoes. You could use the hothouse round tomatoes for this recipe as well. So I made a little X in the bottom of the tomato. I popped it into boiling water for about 30 seconds, and then I put it under cold water, and you can see the skin comes right off super easily. And then to get these seeds out, you're gonna cut it in half. And then the easiest way to do this is to cut it in quarters. And then it's actually the easiest to do this with a paring knife. You run your knife underneath the core here because the core is really tough. So you don't necessarily want to keep this. And then you just scrape out the remaining seeds. And then these are the pieces that you're just going to chop up. And this is what's going to go in the sauce. I got my big bowl of them right here. So I'm going to finish chopping this up. I just wanted to make sure you understood how to do that. And we're going to start cooking our sauce for our shrimp with feta cheese. Okay, so in a nice saucepan, is a pretty large one, I have about 6 tablespoons of olive oil, which is a lot, but this is a Greek recipe and both the Greeks and the Italians love their olive oil. So this is about a cup of onion. This actually was a massive onion, so I'm probably not going to use this whole thing. Maybe one small onion, not a grande onion like I have here. So we're just gonna cook the onion until it's translucent. We don't wanna brown it. This is not the kind of recipe where you want like a caramelized onion flavor at all to this. So just keep cooking it until it's translucent. Also at this point, I'm gonna sprinkle a little bit of salt over this as well. We can add more later. This recipe, because there is shrimp and feta cheese, you want to be a little careful on the salt levels. Probably put a little more salt after we add the tomatoes and we'll taste it. So I'm going to continue to cook these onions for, again, a couple of minutes until they're translucent, and then I'll come back and show you what that looks like. Okay, the onions have started to soften, and now I'm going to add about 1.5 cups of the tomatoes that we prepared. It's 1.5 cups or like 5 Roma tomatoes, I would say, or 4 of those kind of hothouse tomatoes. And I'm going to let this cook for just a minute. And at this point, I'm going to add a little bit more salt to this, not a lot more, a little bit. And then we're also going to add a 1/2 teaspoon of dried oregano. This is the secret to this dish. I'm just going to rub it in my palm to release some of those essential oils. Stir that together. And now we're going to add 1/2 cup of white wine. And that is going to continue to cook for a few minutes. The trick with this is you want to make sure that it's kind of a light puree. It's going to take like 5 or 7 minutes for that to happen. We're not looking for this to be like totally dry, but we don't want as much liquid in here as we do have right now. So it's going to boil and we're going to cook it down, and I will be back in a couple minutes to show you what that looks like. Okay, so this is what we are looking for. It's not completely reduced to nothing, but it's turned into a puree. And now we add our shrimp. And we want to scoot these out until they're in an even layer. And you want to reduce the heat to kind of a medium-low at this point, because you don't want to boil these to death. You want them to have a nice simmer in their tomato, onion, wine bath here. So I'm going to cook these for a couple minutes. And then as soon as I'm ready to flip them, I'm going to show you guys that process, because at that point, we're going to add the magical ingredient, feta cheese. All right, I am ready to flip the shrimp. So I'm going to do that. They don't need to be perfectly pink on that first side at this point, but we do want to flip them. And it doesn't take too long to do that. Last shrimp, and all right, the shrimp are all flipped, and now I'm gonna add the feta cheese. So this is 4 ounces of feta cheese, which is basically like half of a pack that you'll get in the supermarket. The packs are 8 ounces. The original recipe for this only had 2 ounces, which is like nothing, and I'm almost positive we would always put more cheese than that when I was a kid, so I am doing what I grew up with. This cheese is gonna sit in here, and it's actually gonna get a little melty. Now, a little note about feta cheese. So traditional feta cheese is like a goat's milk or sheep's milk feta. So it's very funky and strong. And I love funky, strong cheeses, but I made this recipe a couple months ago with like real traditional Greek feta. And I really didn't like it because I'm so used to this cow's milk feta, because it was really the only thing you could find in the supermarket when I was growing up and we'd make this recipe. So I kind of recommend, if you're Greek and you already make this, you probably won't be following my recipe anyway, but if you're used to that kind of cheese, go for it. If this is your first time trying something like this, then get the cow's milk feta. And that's gonna be the easiest kind of feta you can find in the supermarket, although these days you really can find a lot of different amazing products. So that's just a tip for you, because I was like, oh, I'm gonna use the real feta, and then I made it and I was like, oh, I don't like this as much as I like the other kind. I wanted to mention that story to you. So now at this point, I'm gonna give this a stir, because sometimes the outside shrimp cook more quickly than the middle shrimp. And then you're gonna see too, the cheese is gonna start to break apart a little bit. You'll see that when I stir it, the cheese is gonna be meltier. And then at this point, we're also going to stir in 2 tablespoons of parsley. You can add as little or as much parsley as you want. I like parsley, so I'd be happy adding a lot of it. So we're gonna stir that parsley in. And at this point, we're pretty much done. The shrimp is cooked. The cheese is starting to melt. I might cook this for like 1 or 2 additional minutes to give the cheese another chance to break down a little bit more. But this is shrimp with feta cheese. This is amazing with crusty bread. It's great with rice. It's good with pasta. It's really, really tasty, and I hope you give it a try. So we're gonna try this together in just a minute. Okay, my dad is going to be my taster again today. He's had this dish more times than I have, so he can tell me how I did. How did I do, Dad?
I like it.
Trust me, guys, if he didn't like it, he would definitely say something. So fortunately, that means that I did something right. All right, I'm gonna sneak in. Thank you so much for joining me for this special episode where we celebrate Greek food and my parents. And I'll see you guys next time.